that's unseen risks in SAP projects, or how many animals of which kind did Moses take into the ark? And the question is tricky, right? There is a trick in the question.
Let me just say hello, good morning. Nice to be here in Munich at this wonderful sub-community event. And over to you.
Thank you.
Juliana.
Yeah, so you've had the time to read the title and to think, and I'm just going to ask you, what's the problem with this question? Or maybe you can give me a guess of how many animals of which kind. None. Why? Yeah, that's right. So you're a clever bunch. I wouldn't expect anything else, also given you have some time to think. But when this question is asked out of nowhere, then people start thinking about how many animals of which kind, right? And the trouble with this question is the fact that Moses is within this context of Bible, right? If I asked you how many animals of which kind did Obama take to the ark, you'd pause and reflect. And in our work, we operate within the same domain, more or less. So we often make these mistakes. Our talk will be about exactly errors of that kind and what we can do to avoid them. So on to the presentation. What's happening?
Not sure.
I'll just do
I
this.
can click.
Yeah, so Juliana Hendel is my name, and I am a project manager at Maersk. I'm working with transportation management. Within my unit, we do everything that is not ocean. So truck, rail, barge, everything that is inland. And my particular interest is in those tricks that we can use in order to plan our projects, mitigate risks due to the nature of my job, really. So that's me, and over to Achim.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Achim Töper. And as we said in our abstract before the talk, we will talk a bit about waltzing with bear. So you can imagine waltzing with bear is a bit of a risk. So that comes from a book, famous book of Tom DeMarco, Bärentango in German. So I would describe myself in 4 as I'm a risk dancer in my job at Basis Technologies, dealing with risk and impact assessment software for SAP. I have been the SAP architect of a huge FICA program back then in 2006 and acted as a CTO for Salt Solutions. And since 6 years, I joined Basis Technologies and act as a solution engineer. In that role, we have a task for you today, and we come to that in a minute. So just let me tell you when Juliana and I met in Copenhagen. This is about 6-7 years before, and also Anne, who helped us for the slide stack. We see risks all over, so unseen risk all over. I wear this T-shirt from a DevOps Day Zurich where I've been talking, where Juliana has been so kind to give me this quote. And she said here, taking risk, daring and acting and taking full responsibility, that is the need for us. And even in big projects like going over the moon to Mars or bringing a ship, a single ship from Asia, maybe to Europe, an easy error in steering that ship can lead to that ship stucking in the Suez Canal, and that broke all the goods chains in all over Europe. So that is our talk about today, and we want you to focus on one of the things that Juliana will talk about in a few minutes, and think about that one thing where you might get some things better in the next few weeks. So that is what we want to ask you. I'm your solution engineer. That's my title at Basis Technologies. So I'm your assistant. Over to you, Juliana.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so this session is interactive. We will do a couple of exercises, and to give you just a little heads up, whenever there is a new trick or new mind trick that we will be talking about, try and reflect. You will definitely be able to relate. If you can't relate, I want to know who you are because you're a superhuman. But we will start with an interactive exercise. So that's a planning exercise. We are planning our SAP project. I'm sure you know the phases. That looks very much like any SAP Activate project. I've done a number of projects that look like that. Right now, I'm thinking about a very specific one from the past. We did discovery. We spent 4 weeks on discovery where we confirmed that we can use our best practices, and the best practices cover about 90% of the solution we have. Spent 2 weeks on prepare, where we planned the project, assigned resources, so on and so forth. Then we deep dived into the gaps, those that are 10%. And then we did design, build, and test everything before UAT, right? Took 4 weeks, and then we come to UAT. And my question to you is this: how long should UAT take here? Think about your function, the job that you do, right? And just based on the function that you have, try and estimate that. We'll give you just 30 seconds, 1 minute to think. Keep the number to yourself. We will collect the answers in a bit.
Yes, and I kindly ask then 10 of you randomly to give me your numbers, maybe in weeks. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Right. Remember, it's 10% build, 90% something we've done many times before.
So may I have some first estimations? Who want to go first?
Please do. 2 weeks.
Another one?
4 weeks.
4 weeks?
Yes, please.
5 weeks? We get up a bit. 8 weeks?
8 weeks.
4 weeks again.
Okay.
Okay. Let's stop it here.
Good. All right. So then imagine I'm your project manager. I come to you and I say, we're gonna go with 1 week because we've done that many times before. But of course, I will hear what you have to say, and there is room for negotiation. I'm just saying 1 week. Another 30 seconds, and then we're gonna have a second round of estimation from you. So just think here. All right. Who's ready? Anyone ready with the next estimate? Just think your project manager tells you 1 week, and I want to know what you think still.
Okay, who want to go first?
We have a very tight timeline. We need to decide now because there's, I don't know, freeze after all or something.
So what is it, a week?
We can negotiate somewhat.
Give me your number, please. 3? 1 week and 5 days.
1 week and 5 days. Good. Anyone else? 1 week, 1 day, 5 days, 4 days?
4?
4 weeks still.
That's what you took before. Huh?
Do you think you'll ever get 4 weeks when you asked for 1 week?
Give me 2 other figures. Who wants to go? 4 weeks? 3 weeks. Okay.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. So the project I'm thinking about, what we had there, it took 3 months. 3 months. Actually 3 months instead of 1 week. And why did that happen? There were really many things we didn't know about. Even though you do this project over and over again, you might be doing it with different people, you might be doing it in a different context, with a different client, with a different country. So I want to take you through why those errors occur. And I want to introduce you to a very important scientist of the past 50 years or so. His name is Daniel Kahneman. He is a psychologist who was the first psychologist to win a Nobel Prize in economics. And he won his Nobel Prize in economics describing how we make decisions under uncertainty. So whenever there is risk, how does our mind work when we make a decision? So classical economic theory tells us how we should be making decisions. He described how we actually make decisions and has split our brain into two metaphorical systems. System one, which is a highly intuitive system. This is where we don't need to focus to make a decision. Imagine brushing teeth in the morning. You know what to do. You don't think about it. It happens automatically. You take your toothbrush, you open the toothpaste, so on and so forth. And we operate 95% of the time in this mode. And then there is system two, which is a very, very lazy system. It's slow, it's very logical, and we need to pause in order to make a good decision here. The difference is, imagine you are driving on an empty or almost empty motorway, and you are driving at a constant speed, and there are no interruptions, and you are talking to your companion, you're having a conversation, and you are able to drive without actually thinking about it, because nothing extraordinary happens and you've done it so many times before. That's system one. But suddenly the scenery changes. Maybe there are roadworks. Maybe suddenly there is a very different speed limit. Maybe you need to change lanes. And suddenly you realize, I know I do when that happens, I can't maintain that conversation anymore. I need to say, hey, just a second, I just need to orientate myself there. That's system two. That's the difference. And we are going to focus on challenges of system one today. And because the errors we made in the planning are system one errors. The first error is called noise. Noise can be any unwanted variability in a professional judgment where decisions are different, whereas there should be only one right answer. Imagine you are going to a doctor and he gives you a diagnosis on a set of symptoms, and then you go for second opinion and you get a different diagnosis on the same set of symptoms. You only want one diagnosis, right? So one of those decisions was extremely noisy. Or in the court of law, you go get your sentence or whatever, you appeal it, and then you get a different decision. So anything about law has a lot of noise, and you don't want to go to court on a day with bad weather. So there's significant amount of data saying you're worse off. So what can be noise here? Well, first of all, you are now quite tired and hungry, and that's noise. And also, perhaps you didn't expect that you'll have to do something or actively think and employ system too, right? So all of that noise, and you can reduce it, you can measure it in your projects, and you can reduce it. Achim will get to it in the second part of this talk. And the second kind of type of errors we make, they are biases. Everybody knows what bias is. But while noise is completely random, it can be anything, bias is a systematic pattern. So prejudice is a bias, for example. Just like here on the slide, do you have any data that will fit my theory? So it's errors in judgment. And to just give you a visual for the difference between bias versus noise, the first one is accurate. That's the 3 months for UAT. That's what it actually took. The first one was very noisy. So it was all over the place. It was 2, 4, 5, 8 weeks. The C was quite biased because it had a very, you can see there was no 5 weeks, there was no 8 weeks. It was closer in range. It was biased because I gave you a number in the beginning. It probably was also noisy and biased. So it can deviate to one bit, but you are still maybe hungry. So that's the difference. And I want to focus on specific biases that affected decision-making in that planning. So when we are asked, I know when I'm asked if I'm a good driver or if I'm a better driver than others, I'll say yes. So I'm sure you're a better driver than others, all of you. But we cannot be better drivers than others, all of us, right? So that's exactly what this picture says. Anyone here not in the top 1 of all drivers. And that's overconfidence. We tend to be overconfident when we estimate time, effort. It's one of the most persistent biases and one of the kind of worst errors that we make when we plan. And we need to remember that optimism, wherever you spot optimism or overconfidence to the point of arrogance, that's really a red flag, and you need to pause and reflect. Second one is anchoring effect. So you can see, I beg your pardon, sir, can you spare 600 for a stranger in need? Like 600? Don't you think that's an odd number to ask a stranger for? Oh, absolutely, yes, indeed. But it's a pretty interesting number to begin the negotiation with. And yeah, anchoring effect. That's exactly what it is. When I said 1 week, I anchor your mind about a certain number. I mean, yes, you said 4 weeks here, but I'm fairly sure that in the work settings, you will not be asking for 4 weeks. You will be negotiating days in addition to this 1 week. So 1 week and 5 days is normally what I would hear when people negotiate the time it takes. And remember, whoever goes first has advantage, always. It's like you wouldn't, when you are buying a property and it costs, say, 1 million, you wouldn't be offering 200,000. You will be offering around that number. Same with salary negotiations. If you go first, you have advantage. Remember that. The next one is a very common one, confirmation bias. We tend to like to confirm what we believe in. So we are looking for supporting facts, even though we might have overwhelming disproof staring in our face. But because of our professional intuition, all the experience we had before, we tend to say, oh, we've done that before, so I know how to do that now, disregarding quite a lot of additional information that may be a bit subtle, or sometimes it's not as subtle, but we still disregard it. And then there's halo effect. He has such luxurious fur. I bet he's a really good boy. Yeah, I have a cat like that at home. He looks very like a good boy. Halo effect is when we assign certain characteristics to a person based on something quite superficial. It can be looks, it can be manner of talking, it can be confidence. Think of someone who is very confident and sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and then when it comes to execution, it fails, right? For me, this number of 1 week came originally from my manager in the past. He said 1 week should be enough. And I was lucky. I had a great manager. I looked up to him. And to me, that was a major, what do you call it, influence to go with that number. And it was a mistake. Actually, another example, I called my friend Anna here. She's sitting right here. And I said, hey, I'm gonna talk about the subject. I'm gonna talk about Moses' question. What do you think? How many animals of which kind did Moses take onto the ark? but I didn't say Moses. I said Noah. I made error when I asked her. And she started to think, she's like, oh, but I don't know. Maybe this many, maybe that many. And I said, I realized while she was talking, I realized I made an error. And then I said, well, actually, it wasn't Noah, it was Moses. So I did reverse trick. And she's like, you always trick me. Yes, of course it was Moses. And next day she texts me, it was Noah. 24 hours. But the thing to remember here, that trust is also major halo. She didn't expect a trick from me. So trust can be a little dangerous. And this particular effect works in a negative way. If I say Hitler loved cute puppies and little children, this sentence sounds absurd no matter how many times you say it, because it's odds that someone evil could, and puppies and children, it's absurd. So it works other way around as well. So these are the 4 biases we are focusing on. And from here on, I hand it over to you, Achim, because you will tell us what we need to do in order to debias.
Yes, here is your solution engineer again.
Yeah, thank you.
Impressing and interesting things that you told me. And I know you for some years, and how you are in that stuff of the psychological things. And it's great. A dream comes true today to share a stage with you. So thanks a lot also to you. To the debiasing. So let's get back to action. Let's take some exercises. We ask you to focus on those 4 biases, or if you like, take the noise also under consideration, and work for the next weeks on these things. Just remember when you fell into those biases and when you experienced that thing. In my personal life, often in the last weeks, I had the halo effect, even in personal decisions for hiring new personnel. I had the anchoring effect right now, buying me a wetsuit for my triathlon. So all that works as you said, and I've put it on a summary slide for you. This was the confirmation bias, then the overconfidence bias, remember the drivers, the halo effect, our last example, and then the anchoring effect. And I will give you 6 items to debias. Debias step number 1, that is maybe you experience when we ask you the question about how many animals put Moses onto the ark. Oh, sorry. This is another question, first of all. If I would ask you, how happy are you with your life? And think about it. Sometimes you tend to answer an easier question like, what is my mood right now? So we tend to answering more easy questions. And the same took place when we asked you, how long would it take to complete user acceptance tests in our project? The one or the other of you might have thinking about the question, how long did it take in one of my last projects, right? So to avoid that bias, there's an easy trick. AAC, answer the actual question, not AAC, AAQ. Answer the actual question. Yeah, if there is a question coming up, not trying to make it easier for you to switch into autopilot, but answer the current question. Steven Spielberg once said, all good ideas start out as bad ideas. That's why it takes so long. There is another tip for you to avoid those biases, to avoid misdecisions in project. Do a pre-mortem. So a pre-mortem is something that we do before a project even starts. And we consider that project as dramatically failed. That you can do that exercise with your team. So let's play detectives if we want to work on that bias. Play detective, think about that project dramatically failing, and think about what led to that fail, because then you can avoid it later on when it comes to decisions to that project. Tip number 2. This is a project manager looking not so happy. He has to estimate the features and the points that are on the backlog, and he is not able or not willing to answer to ask other people. So he's a bit afraid to ask. The deep bias step here would be ask others, include peers, include even your managers into discussions to avoid the bias of misdecision and underestimating. Maybe take their feedback into consideration, compare it with what you finally or firstly have estimated, and then try to make a better decision out of it. So that is asking for feedback.
I want to add
actively.
just one thing to this. The reason, I mean, we'll ask for feedback. I'm sure there is some structure to how you ask feedback and how you give feedback. But the reason why it's important is because, well, consider this. There is a significant body of research that tells us when we are asked about ourselves. For example, couples asked whether or not 5 years on they will still be together. Their margin of error is massive. When their friends are asked, they're very, very accurate. So just remember to be humble, I guess, and accept that, because people around you are likely to be more accurate. Thank you.
Thanks for adding this. Deep biasing step number 4, let's start with a picture. So if you imagine your creative brain when you are left alone, so 3 people, all those things would work together, right? And in a situation with stress in a group thinking process, it might come to that SOS situation. So your brain got lost. And to avoid this, and this brings us back to the anchoring effect that we had in the first exercise, do a silent brainstorming. So if we would have asked you, take a note, make your minds about the estimation, and then I take the post-its, put it on a flip chart, and later on we see all the post-its, and then we have a group meeting, and then we would avoid that I would go first with my. We needed 1 week in a project before, so that would lead to a debiasing of that situation. So silent brainstorming would be our debiasing tip number 4. If you look to us, let's say an easy job following checklists and following rules like this postman, or he would expect himself to be a male escort. I like that picture very much. We would recommend to you use your SAP tools because there are a lot available. There is an SAP Activate methodology. There is ASAP. Some of you might know ASAP, Accelerated SAP. There is a focus build having great dashboards and backlogs and all these things. Follow checklists. Yeah? Make yourself a checklist. And very important is to avoid noisy decisions, agree on ways of working with these tools and embed them in your day-to-day decisions, estimations, and working. So that is a standard. And our tip number 5, use the SAP tools and methodology. Finally, and I also like that, so write down, do silent brainstorming. Do silent brainstorming. Yeah, you can put your words inside it. Use your retrospective. So if you did a project, if it was a wonderful project, very successful, or somehow failed, use the retrospective. If I would talk to agile teams developing software, they sometimes have a 2-week sprint, and the last day of a sprint is a retrospective. They talk about what went well and what did go wrong, just to get some points out of it to do better next time. Right? So this is use your retrospective. And before I repeat them all, over to you for your extension.
I'm sure we all conduct retrospective, but do we use them afterwards? Maybe not always, but also a fact is that we tend to repeat the same mistakes. Unfortunately, we don't learn as we hope that we do. Any one of you had a ticket before, parking ticket? I'm sure yes. And have you ever had 2 parking tickets? It works exactly the same way. So we wrap up the theory, and we're gonna do a little exercise to finish and embed in your minds what we've just learned.
Yeah. Finally, so the 6 steps: answer the actual question, conduct pre-mortem, ask for feedback, silent brainstorming, use your SAP tools, and use your retrospective. And just for the exercise, for doing some training and some avoiding the next weeks, we have put them all on one slide. And as I know, Anne and Juliana and we are familiar with something called Search Inside Yourself Leadership that comes from Google, is based on neuroscience, and they have a harvesting exercise in the end that we want to conduct today with you. Harvesting means we put ourselves together in group of 3 or 4. So you could stand up on the stairs or here in the front and just talk in the group what you will take out as one result of the session today, of the theories and the exercises, and say your peers on which thing you want to work. Just to make it a bit easier for you, we also prepare a LinkedIn article that we will post in the next 3 to 4 weeks latest, and follow Juliana and I or Jen or Anne just to read the theories. And now we would like to invite you to that harvesting exercise. How many minutes can we have for this?
A few minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so
all right, that's fine. Choose one bias. If your mind is wandering and you're hungry, think of halo bias. Everyone has experienced that. Absolutely. So just turn to whoever you're sitting with, or you are free to get up and just tell a story.
Slide with the contact data.
Definitely. We can go to this one and just
Bedanken wir uns noch, ja?
this, because this is funny, I think.
Yeah. Okay. It's your turn. Say thank you in the name of us, and then we go ahead.
I think we are wrapping up now. You are free to continue. I just want to say one thing at the end. Finish with a quote from Kahneman also. He said, "Nothing in life is quite as important as you think it is while you are thinking about it." Yeah, so keep that in mind, chill, have great discussions, and thank you so much for attending this talk. And thank you, Achim.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your meal. Good to meet you all.
Stop. There's no enjoying of meal yet. There's no enjoying of meal yet. First, any questions? Yeah, of course.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I had a question about the anchoring bias and the example of 1 week, and people gave different views that way extended the 1 week, and the comment was, well, if you've been told it's 1 week, you normally on the project you're going to be negotiating the days. But if based on your experience and the context of your knowledge of the project, you know that 1 week is absurd, why wouldn't you stick with your conviction and say, and in an advisory capacity say, yes, you want 1 week, but for these reasons, it's going to take at least 4 weeks. And in your case, perfect example, it turned out to be 3 months, because my experience in these situations is if you stick to your convictions and then the project says, no, for example, we have to go live by this date, and you say, well, no, that's not reasonable, blah, blah, blah. And what ends up happening is they continue on that path until they realize actually that they can't meet that objective, and they've missed the opportunity to properly plan for it if they'd taken all of the advice on the beginning.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely. I think that at that time, that's some time back, I may have had a little problem with authority when, you know, my manager comes, and he was a brilliant man, and he says we should be fine because we've done it and it's tested, and what we usually find is some master data thing that we can easily correct, you know. And I was like, okay, it wouldn't happen now. I like to think it wouldn't happen now, but there was this major halo effect based on trust and experience of a senior colleague. And that's something to remember. That's a very good reflection. Thank you. Yeah. How to deal with incomplete information. I think pre-mortem exercise is a very good exercise to explore, because here you can have a workshop where you can let your imagination fly. You will consider all the technical aspects, all the capacity aspects, all the limitations. You should think broader than that. You should think, do I really know those people on the business side, for example? Do I know their qualifications? Do they tend to be overconfident? Do they know their processes? There are so many things that are unknown, and this pre-mortem exercise is a very good idea to conduct before. Thank you. So that's back to actual question versus
if the question comes to you, that's the actual question. So try to bring yourself away from trying to answer another question. If the question needs some extra information or some context, get back to the person who asked the question and try to answer exactly that question.
Yeah, I think it's not the question that you should be wondering about. It's your answer. So when you're asked, are you happy with your life? And you are not given 15 minutes to reflect, then you will most likely say, oh, it's good because I'm in good mood right now, right? Because subconsciously you'll be answering the question of, am I in a good mood now instead? It's your answer you need to focus on and ask yourself, did I actually answer that question? Or did I answer another question?
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.